Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our new webinar, Discover the New Spartan Recess. So we'll get started. So just to introduce myself, I'm Charlotte Loudon, Ratex Marketing Communications Manager, and I will be hosting today's webinar. I'll be joined by my colleague Andy Oliver, Ratex Regional Sales Manager for the UK and Ireland, who will be running you through the main content of the webinar. I'll also be joined by my colleague Jonathan Somerset, Ratex Technical Director, who will be joining us to answer your questions at the end of the webinar. So just some things to note. As I said before, we'll be doing a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions in your GoToWebinar control panel and we'll answer them at the end. And another thing to note, after today's webinar, everybody will receive the slides and the recording to the webinar. So thank you for everyone who's joined, and I'll hand you over to Andy. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Charlotte. So just a quick introduction. My name's Andy Oliver. I'm Sales Manager for the UK and Ireland, and I'll be going through today's Spartan Recess webinar. So just a quick look at the agenda. Why have we decided to go into the recess market? We'll focus on that. A quick look at traditional recessed fittings and what's already out there in the marketplace. A brief look into the different types of ceilings that are available and how this is important into specifying the correct fitting. Look at the features and benefits of the recessed, some customer feedback section, look at some target markets, and then we'll close with availability, timelines, and a Q&A session at the end. So first of all, why recessed? One of the things we do at Raretech is we do listen actively to our customer and user markets, and the recessed product was the most requested style of fitting that we didn't already manufacture. So we've taken this into consideration, and also after a long period of design and consultation and R&D, we've come up with this product. There's a high profile of dust hazards now in the marketplace, very much around the pharmaceutical markets. But obviously further to the recent pandemic, pharmaceutical is a massive growth sector, and the recess fitting is a key part of a lot of those types of applications. This gives us at Raretech access to new markets. We are traditionally quite strong in the pharmaceuticals, but this does give us now access to a particular side of that which we've never had access to before. In terms of competition, we're actively finding that some of our manufacturing competitors are moving away from this type of fitting, which gives us opportunities. And in terms of retrofit opportunities, there are millions of these type of fittings currently installed around the world, and these are all fluorescent. And again, what we're finding is that the LED versions are just not out there in the marketplace to offer an easy retrofit solution. So we've designed the recess such that gives you that opportunity. And then it gives us growth in sector, again, in the specifically looking at the pharmaceutical and also the offshore and marine sectors. So looking at the Spartan range, we very much focus on versatility and flexibility of the product, and that we can do, it's not just a light fitting, we can do so much more with it. We can control the light to make it as effective as possible. We very much focus on the rugged and durable side of the fittings, that they are fit for purpose and they will carry on doing what they're meant to do for many years after installation. And one of the biggest things that we also focus on is the easy to maintain. So we like to make sure that from an end user point of view and a maintenance point of view, that it's one of the easiest jobs that you'll have to do on site. So just a quick look at the current product range. Floodlight, we do high power, mid power, and the FL range. Linear, I'm sure you're all familiar with, or if you're familiar with Raretech, you will have come across the Linear. It's our most popular fitting and supremely versatile and flexible in its application uses. Bulkhead now offers an increased range of high output and standard output bulkheads. Bay fittings, we now have high power bay, mid power emergency, and high output linear. Streetlight is a new relative addition to the range that was launched earlier this year. And then we have specialist markets as well, such as the crane flood. And now we've got the recessed product that we can add to our portfolio. So I mentioned earlier about giving us access to new markets. In terms of the onshore, very much focused around pharmaceutical, chemical manufacturing and food manufacturing. But another big point is cosmetics and perfume, which is again a big growth sector globally. Offshore, looking at oil and gas platforms, marine applications, and floating hotels. So in terms of oil and gas platforms, these could be the accommodation modules, and marine applications, this is generally shipborne type markets. So traditional recess fittings. So a few images there of some fittings that are currently on the market. And what you tend to find with these is that they're heavy. It's heavy sheet material, tends to be 2mm thick aluminium or steel. They can be quite challenging to install. And because of the way they're constructed, they are a very, very heavy load on the ceiling. The general construction is steel construction, like I say, 2 to 3mm thick, and you often find that the glass lens in front of the fitting can be up to 6mm thick as well. All of that puts a significant load on the ceilings. Because these were fluorescent, there was very little flexibility with light output. So you don't have the flexibility that you'd have with the LED offer, certainly not with the Raytec LED offer. And the other side of it was that the maintenance of these fittings was historically quite difficult, as access was generally only from behind the ceiling. You could never get into the fitting from underneath. So in conjunction with that are the different ceiling types. And this is one of the most important things when specifying the recess fitting, is what different types of ceiling are you going to be faced with. The most popular two are going to be the exposed T and solid plasterboard. The exposed T is the type of ceiling that you'll normally find in most office blocks, where you can actually see the T-bar arrangement. The concealed T is very similar, but the ceiling tiles or luminaires actually cover up the T-bar system, so you can't see that, hence concealed. Most popular, I think, we'll find is solid and plasterboard ceilings. And this is where you have literally a solid ceiling, and then a hole is cut in the ceiling, a square rectangular hole, to allow the fitment of the recess fitting. Also, we have offshore ceilings, which are generally B15 rated, which is the fire rating, which allows fire to be contained for a minimum of 30 minutes. And a lot of the certification that we've done has been around the B15 to make sure that we meet all of the different fire regulations. So just looking at some of the recessed features. So flexible and versatile. So this is all about being able to do more than just turn a light on and expect light to come out of it. We can focus the LEDs in many ways. So we can apply different optics, different power variations, and basically make the lights perform how we want them to perform. The fitting is lightweight. We've done that deliberately to try and make life easier for the installer, and looking at the loading on the ceilings. It's easy to install and maintain. We've designed this fitting effectively such that it's a one-man install. Previous older type recessed luminaires could easily be a two-man job, one person to hold it, one person to fix it. We're confident that the Raytec fitting can be done by one person. The commonality of parts, again, it's a consistent theme within the Raytec range, in that we use a lot of parts over and over again. So when you look at the recess fitting, the light engines bears a lot of similarity to the linear light engine, and the same parts will go all the way through the fitting. And multiple beam patterns, again, very much because the recessed is based strongly upon the linear fitting, we've been able to bring forward all of the linear features into the recess, so we can do multiple beam options with this fitting. So look at the flexibility and the versatility. So it's a modular design with multiple options. So the modular design, you have 3 standard variations, which is 600 by 600, 600 by 1200, and 300 by 1200 in the formats that you can see on the slide there. We also do a plank system, which is very much designed for the marine type market, with different types of ceilings that go into vessels. Generally, they're a 275 wide system, so that fitting is designed very much for that market. One thing we've been able to do with the modular design is that we can make any of it. Obviously, we've got the standard sizes 600, 600, 600 by 1200, but we can install the light engines and the PSU modules basically into any size sheet metal housing. So it gives us lots and lots of options to be able to fill lots and lots of different size holes that might be out there in the marketplace. In terms of mounting, there are 3 mounting types. So the swing arm bracket, which you can see in the bottom mid center picture. So as you install the fitting and screw the bracket up from below the fitting, the bracket swings out and starts to clamp down on the ceiling, all in one motion. We have a drop rod bracket, which allows for suspension from threaded rod or stud from above. You can also just lay the fitting on an exposed T-bar ceiling, or we also do a surface mount option for solid ceilings where we're coming in from behind. So lightweight design, again, touched on this earlier, and we very much wanted to change the way in that the recess product is seen in the marketplace. The old technology, so you had control gear, ballast, capacitors, which were all pretty heavy. The actual material at the fittings itself, they were heavy. What you tended to find is it was a luminaire contained within another box to keep the certification. You had the glass lens, which was usually quite significant, a lot of thickness in that, and hence a lot of weight. Lots and lots of sheet metal and lots of heavy optical material. So this is what we used to find in the old fittings. And what we have tried to do is remove as much of that as we can. So the Raytech recessed is up to 50% lighter than comparable products in the market. We've minimized the excess sheet metal. And by that, I mean that we've designed strength into all of the individual components. So the actual base structure itself is pretty strong. But then the light engine housings, the PSU housings, they're all individually strong on their own, and they are, when they're all built together and the fitting is assembled, that adds significant strength to the fitting. So we've been able to come up with a really rigid product that minimizes the amount of weight that the load being put on the load in the ceilings. In terms of the optical materials, again, we've used a proven method, which is the linear light engine. And again, it's a very, very lightweight system. All of this ultimately reduces the load on the ceilings. Just to put some of those facts into numbers, so 600 by 600 is a 7 kilo unit, same as the 300 by 1200, the heaviest of the fittings being the 600 by 1200 at 14 kilos. But you could easily find that something like that in the old fluorescent world could be coming in at around 25 kilos, there or thereabouts. So now looking at the ease of installation and maintenance. So there's no need to disassemble the fitting. Again, previous older fittings on the market, you'd have to disassemble the fitting, take the front cover off to install the base into the ceiling void, and then start accessing all the terminal blocks and all the bits and pieces from underneath. With the recess fitting, you can literally just lay the fitting into the ceiling. You have access points from below for the pull-up accessory bracket. The swing arm tightens and rotates in one motion, as I previously mentioned. And it's a pretty low profile. So in terms of ceiling void space, you've got plenty of space for lifting the fitting up into the ceiling and then position it into place. And I say, pretty much makes it a one-man install. Looking further into the installation, there is a front access panel. which is accessible via 6 M4 screws on the front. This drops down on a retaining cord, similar to all the other features in the Raretech range. And this gives you easy access to the power supply, the terminal block, and the battery pack if it's an emergency version. So you've got easy access to all the terminals. So that's from below the fitting, from ground level. Equally from behind the fitting, there are quick release screws built into the housing at the back of the fitting. So it's a quarter turn screw, twist those, and the housing pops off, and it gives you instant access to the housing from behind. Flexible cables mean that there's no rigidity in there, so you've got room to be able to work. So you've got access for this fitting from above and below. And one of the other features of this fitting is that you can have a remote power supply option, such that the PSU doesn't have to be fixed to the actual housing itself. It can be remote mounted elsewhere. Finally, on this little section, so again, looking at older fittings, we've managed to reduce the amount of gaskets that are needed for this fitting by up to 80%. In terms of parts and things that were actually accessible, the only gasket you'll actually ever really see is the one around the front access panel. So in that respect, there is only one part that can be actually damaged, and again, in line with Raretech policies, we keep spares off the shelf. So any instances like that, we should be able to address that very, very quickly. There is ultimately no need to access the light engines. So again, there's a lot of the components you don't need to access, so there's no chance of accidental damage. Looking at some of the flexibility of the fitting then, so looking at the multiple beam angles. So we have a mixing chamber, which has been specially designed to control the amount of glare for people working under the light. The cutoff for the lighting is at 65 degrees. And when used with the diffuse lens, there are no bright spots, so you don't get any dark light spots on the floor. We've also managed to come up with a low UGR rating on this fitting. So looking at some of the actual beam angles that are available to us, again, if you're familiar with the with the linear range, you'll be familiar with these types of optics. So standard optic is a 120-120. Diffused optic is just a little bit shallower, but then we can have very concentrated spot optics, 30 degree, 60 degree, a more wider 90 degree flood. Excuse me. The 140 optic is very much designed for low ceilings, so sort of 3 meters and under. This gives you a really good wide optic coverage, so you get a high uniformity of light on the working plane. And the PP3 optic is designed as a street light optic, so more of an asymmetric throw. And also the 140-140 would be good for corridor lighting, again, because it gives us a wide throw of light. Looking at some additional features of the recessed fitting. All variants are sort of standard variation, which is a 110, 254 volt. We do a low voltage option, again, as per other items in the range. All versions are available as either Zone 1 with the SPX prefix, Zone 2, SPZ, or heavy industrial, which will be SPI. Standard CCT options will be 4,000 or 6,500 kelvins. There will be standard price versions. Other color temperatures are available, 3K, 5K, but that will be price and application depending on your requirements. Standard option will be M20, but again, with the flexibility that we offer, we'll be able to do M25, 3/4 NPT, but again, price and application as required. And again, keeping with the Raretech theme of versatility and flexibility, up to 100% emergency will be available. So in terms of the lumens output and the performance characteristics of the fitting, so the 600x600, you can see there, gives just over 3,000 lumens from a 23 watt supply, so a very high efficacy of 133 watts. And that goes up to 160 watts, 160 lumens per watt in the Zone 2 version, so 3.5 3,700 lumens from a 23-watt power supply. So yeah, very, very effective, efficient unit. That's the standard version. We can also do high output, which is effectively double the power from the same housing. So that's taking you up to 7,500 lumens for 600 by 600, and nearly 15,000 for the 600 by 1200, which gives you lots and lots of options if you've got higher ceiling heights. Emergency, yeah, we pride ourselves on our emergency capabilities. So up to 100% output in emergency mode. The standard format will be EMX25, which gives you 25% output for 180 minutes. But here you can see some of the options that we can do. So EMX25, 50% for 90 minutes, obviously depending on the fitting size, 75% and 100%. All of these fittings use the intelligent emergency that is you'll find on the linear fitting. So you've got your self-test features, your self-commission, and lots of other features besides. Again, like the other fittings, light levels are maintained during test facilities, during test routines. So there'll be no noticeable loss of illumination should these fittings go into self-test mode. The fittings are controllable. We are gradually introducing DALI 2.0 to the entire Raytec range, but that is as standard on the recess fitting. But that is currently only on standard variations. The emergency is to come at some point, probably in 2025. And this gives you the options for increased flexibility, control, monitoring, and precision on the installation. So just looking at certification. Now, sometimes an X in a certificate means that you've got to take specific, you've got to take care, find out what it is. And for the most part, we generally don't have any X's in our certificates. There are no restrictions on their use. Not the case with the recess fitting. The X is all to do with the insulation that might be installed in the ceiling void. So it's important to note that all the testing we've done is based with the relative amounts of insulation laid on top of the fitting. But again, as you can see, we have ATEX, UKEX and IECX certification for zones 1 to 21 and 22. And on the certificates and on the data sheets gives you information about with and without insulations as to what the maximum ambient temperatures are that are permissible for use. So just looking at the Raytec approach to how we do things, everything we do is produced and certified to the latest set of standards. We actively prioritize independent third-party testing. So we do a lot of in-house testing in the research and development of the fitting, but in terms of certification, photometrics, everything gets checked independently third-party, and this is all to ensure safety on site. So obviously, everything we do at Raytec starts off as a hazardous area product, which comes under the Spartan brand. This product, just like everything else, is also available as heavy industrial under the Warrior brand, which has the SPI prefix. So supporting our customers, what else can we offer as well as just supplying the actual luminaires? So we have our lighting design service, completely free of charge. And you can have comprehensive service, full site modeling, very, very detailed design reports. We pride ourselves on the accuracy and the detail that we do on our designs. We look to a very, very fast turnaround, and ultimately all of our photometric data is available for download from the website, such that you can do your own designs as you see fit. Obviously, we would love to be engaged with this when you're doing your designs. Just obviously we know our products and we know what solutions we can offer to whatever problems might be out there in the marketplace. Everything we do at Raytec is backed by a 5-year warranty, and nothing changes regarding the recess fitting. Obviously that covers all main parts, doesn't cover consumables such as batteries. And looking at timeline and availability, so we launched the fitting, we had a soft launch in July. Public launch was done in early August, and availability is currently running at an 8 to 10 week lead time. But we are now actively taking orders and taking questions regarding specification and applications. So just looking at some questions that we would ask when you're specifying the recess fitting. So key things, what types of sealing do I have? So obviously we spoke about that earlier, exposed T, concealed T, solid sealing. If it's a solid sealing, what is the size of the cutout? Is there a load restriction that we need to be concerned about? Generally, because the fitting is lighter than a lot of the competition, I would say that maybe the load restriction we could not negate, but we can maybe not to be so worried about. Does the sealing or any part of it form a fire rating? Is it a plenum sealing? Is there air handling going on that we need to be knowing about? And if existing products are installed, how are they mounted? Again, that's something that we'd need to know to make sure we can get specification for the brackets correctly. And what are the dimensions of the current recess product? Again, one of the things I touched on earlier, we can make that fitting fit basically any size. Thank you for your attention. Now we'll open it up for any questions. And welcome Jonathan onto the webinar.
Thanks, Andy, for that. Yeah, so let's welcome Jonathan to the webinar. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody.
Right, so we've got a few questions that have come in, so I'll just ask them to the floor. So Marcel's asked, is it possible to have a made-to-measure product for offshore, taking existing ceilings into account?
Hi, Marcel. Thanks for the question. The answer to that is yes. So as Andy touched on earlier, we specifically designed the recess product to be very easy to modify. So all of our certification has been carried out with individual light engines and power supplies mounted into configurable front panels. So yes, part of the design ethos was to make it able to be made to measure for our customer applications. So yes, if you have any made to measure requirements, just chat to myself, chat to Andy, and we can probably come up with a solution for you.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. So Dave has asked, are the standard units supplied with a clear or diffused lens, and would you recommend diffused in most applications?
Thanks, Dave. So yes, the standard product is a clear front lens. So as with our linear product, if you order the standard part code, you will get a clear lens with a standard 120 by 120 degree beam angle. If you want the diffused version, then you would need to add a suffix onto the end of the part code. The typical type of applications for this product, we would normally recommend a diffused panel on the front of the product, and that just reduces the amount of glare, reduces the amount of eye strain, but it does depend on the application. But most of the customers who have taken recess so far have taken it with a diffused lens, yes.
Great. There's another question here from Mark. If we had a special installation, would it be available in a different color to white?
Hi, Mark. Yes, thanks for the question. It very much depends on the size of the project. We certainly wouldn't say no at the early stages, but yes, there are different colors available, but it depends on the size of the project and minimum order quantities and that sort of thing. So if you have a specific color in mind, please get in touch and chat with us, and can again come up with a solution for you.
Great. See if there's any more questions here. So John's asked, are these available and certified to Zone 1, Zone 2 and safe area? So obviously we've answered that question further on in the webinar, but Jonathan, if you want to expand a little more, you can.
Yes, I can. So yes, as Andy covered in one of the slides. So yes, we have Zone 1/21 versions in the range. So those start with the SPX suffix. So the sort of protection concepts around them are EXE and EXM. So increased safety and encapsulation. We also have Zone 2 variants. So Zone 2/22 variants. So those start with SPZ. So the markings on those products would be EXEC, MC. So still the same protection concepts, but to the Zone 2 requirements. And then, yes, we have Warrior variants in the range as well. So those are safe area variants, and they comply with the general safety requirements for luminaires. So EN 60598, rather than the hazardous area standards. But yes, a full range of certification available.
Fabulous. So we've had another one from Dave asking if the product comes with a 5-year warranty, and yes, it does. We've covered that further on in the webinar. So yeah, so that looks like it for the questions so far. I can see. If we have missed any, we will get back to you, but I think I've covered them all. We might. Okay, let's just hold on for a few more minutes just to see if there's any more questions that come through. And if they are, we'll answer them on the webinar. But if not, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's joined us today. Oh, there's one that has just come in. Sorry, I just got distracted. What is the standard voltage available?
Hi there. Yes, so the standard variants are 110 to 254 volts AC. We have 277 volt options as well, so 110 to 277 volt. So if you're working off a single phase of a 3-phase system, then the 277 volt is available to you. There's also low voltage variants, so 18 to 69 volts DC or 18 to 48 volts AC. Low voltage variants are available. So the range covers pretty much all voltage inputs that are required in the market.
Brilliant. I have got another one from Marcel that I've just seen. What type of battery are the emergency variants?
So in the emergency variants, we've carried over the technology that we're using across the majority of the Spartan range now. So linear and bulkhead, which is nickel cadmium batteries. So we recently launched our mid-power flood emergency, which is using nickel metal hydride battery packs. But in the recess product, we are currently using nickel cadmium.
Brill, thank you. So I do think that's all the questions there. So I just want to say a huge thank you to Jonathan and Andy for being on the webinar and running the webinar. And then, yes, thank you to everybody else who's attended the webinar. I hope it was useful to you all.